So, BRICS. Oh boy, this is something that we definitely need to continue to. Yeah. Okay, don't make it. All right, we had a problem with some DMCA's last week. Let's try not to have that happen again this week.
Yes, I sound exactly like the P-Funk All-Stars.
No, it's Rick James.
Who did that song?
That would be Rick James.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So, Ramzy Baroud in MintPress News published an opinion piece, and it's really interesting because MintPress rarely puts the disclaimer. I noticed that the opinion of the person here does not reflect, but I guess maybe they do that every time now. But the rise of BRICS, the economic giant that is taking on the West. Who's your Vladdy? What's up, dude?
Okay. Glad that caught your... Someone's been reading the fan fiction a little too hard.
Oh, come on. Our friend Tara Reid does have a t-shirt that says, "Who's your Vladdy?" And I saw that picture and I just thought, that's too good, man. That's too good.
I mean, he seems happy.
He's pretty happy.
I got whatever's in this cup. I want to know what's in that cup.
No, we know what's in that cup.
You know?
We know it's in that cup. So the G7 summit in Elmach, Germany, June 26th through 28th, and the NATO summit in Madrid 2 days later were practically useless in terms of providing actual solutions to the ongoing global crises. The war in Ukraine, the looming famines, climate change, and more. But the two events were important nonetheless as they provide a stark example of the impotence of the West amid rapidly changing global dynamics. Yeesh. Okay. As was the case since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war, the West attempted to display unity, though it has become repeatedly obvious that no such unity exists. While France, Germany, and Italy are paying a heavy price for the energy crisis resulting from the war, Britain's Boris Johnson is adding fuel to the fire in the hope of making his country relevant on the global stage following the humiliation of Brexit. Meanwhile, the Biden administration is exploiting the war to restore Washington's credibility and leadership over NATO, especially following the disastrous term of Donald Trump, which nearly broke up the historic alliance. Probably should have anyway. Even the fact that several African countries are becoming vulnerable to famines, a result of the disruption of food supplies originating from the Black Sea and the subsequent rising prices, did not seem to perturb the leaders of some of the richest countries in the world. They still insist on not interfering in the global food market, though the skyrocketing prices have already pushed tens of millions of people below the poverty line.
Okay.
Though the West had little reserve of credibility to begin with, Western leaders' current obsession with maintaining thousands of sanctions on Russia, further NATO expansion, dumping yet more lethal weapons in Ukraine, and sustaining their global hegemony at any cost have pushed their credibility standing to a new low. Hard to argue with. From the start of the Ukraine war, the West championed the same moral dilemma as that raised by George W. Bush at his start of so-called war on terror. You're either with us or you're with us, or you're either with us or with the terrorists, he declared in October 2001. Of course, we know that.
Mass destruction.
But the ongoing Russia-NATO conflict cannot be reduced to simple and self-serving cliches. One can indeed want an end to the war and still oppose U.S. Western unilateralism. We do. The reason that American dictates worked in the past, however, is that unlike the geopolitical atmosphere, a few declared Washington's policies. Don't ask. Yes, thank you. Times have changed. Russia, India, along with many others in Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and South America, are navigating all available spaces to counter the suffocating Western dominance. These countries have made it clear that they will not take part in isolating Russia in the service of NATO's expansionist agenda. To the contrary, they've taken many steps to develop alternatives to the West-dominated global economy, and particularly to the U.S. dollar, which for 5 decades has served the role of a commodity, not a currency per se. The latter has been Washington's most effective weapon, associated with many U.S.-orchestrated crises, sanctions, and in the case of Iraq and Venezuela, among others, mass hunger. So, China and others understand that the current conflict is not about Ukraine versus Russia, but about something far more consequential. If Washington and Europe emerge victorious, and if Moscow is pushed back beyond the proverbial Iron Curtain, Beijing would have no other options but to make painful concessions to the re-emerging West. This in turn would place a cap on China's global economic growth and would weaken its case regarding the One China policy. China is not wrong. Almost immediately following NATO's limitless military support of Ukraine and the subsequent economic war on Russia, Washington and its allies began threatening China over Taiwan. We've seen this happen. Many provocative statements, along with military maneuvers and high-level visits by U.S. politicians to Taipei, were meant to underscore U.S. dominance in the Pacific. Two main reasons drove the West to further invest in the current confrontational approach against China, at a time where arguably it would have been more beneficial to exercise a degree of diplomacy and compromise. Yes, it would have. First, the West feared that Beijing could misinterpret its action as weakness and a form of appeasement. And second, because the West's historic relationship with China has always been predicated on intimidation, if not outright humiliation. From the Portuguese occupation of Macau in the 16th century, to the British Opium Wars of the mid-19th century, to Trump's trade war on China, the West has always viewed China as a subject, not a partner. This is precisely why Beijing did not join the chorus of Western condemnation of Russia. Though the actual war in Ukraine is of no direct benefit to China, the geopolitical outcomes of the war could be critical to the future of China as a global power. While NATO remains insistent on expansion so as to illustrate its durability and unity, it is the alternative world order led by Russia and China that is worthy of serious attention. According to the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, okay, that's the Frankfurt daily newspaper, Beijing and Moscow are working to further develop the BRICS club of major emerging economies to serve as a counterweight to the G7. The German newspaper is correct. BRICS' latest summit on June 23rd was designed as a message to the G7 that the West is no longer in the driving seat and that Russia, China, and the global South are preparing for a long fight against Western dominance. Here we go. In his speech at the BRICS summit, Vladimir Putin proposed the creation of an international reserve currency based on the basket of currencies of our countries. The fact that the ruble alone has managed to survive, in fact flourish, under recent Western sanctions, gives hope that the BRICS currencies combined can manage to eventually sideline the U.S. dollar as the world dominant currency. I believe that Russia and China today announced that they are actually now trading in either yuan or rubles. Reportedly, it was Xi Jinping who requested that the date of the BRICS summit be changed from July 4th to June 23rd, so that it would not appear to be a response to the G7 summit. This further underscores how the BRICS are beginning to see themselves as a direct competitor to the G7. The fact that Argentina and Iran are applying for BRICS membership also illustrates that the economic alliance is morphing into a political, in fact, geopolitical entity.
Yep.
The global fight ahead is perhaps the most consequential since World War II. While NATO will continue to fight for relevance, Russia, China, and others will invest in various economic, political, and even military infrastructures in the hopes of creating a permanent and sustainable counterbalance to Western dominance. The outcome of this conflict is likely to shape the future of humanity. Damn. So, Dr. Ramzy Baroud, who is he? He's a journalist and the editor of the Palestine Chronicle. He's the author of 6 books. His latest book, co-edited with Ilan Pappé, is Our Vision for Liberation, Engage Palestinian Leaders and Intellectuals Speak Out. Again, he's writing for MintPress News. He's an independent writer. I've definitely featured his stuff before. Really well-educated, really good stuff. Brings it. And we've been talking about BRICS for a little while. We've been talking, they're all childs of WEF, children of WEF here, from Xi to Putin to all of them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that them aligning to create. Now, look, if you look at the number of people that are in this BRICS alliance, it represents like a quarter of the world's population, at least. Way more than in NATO. All right, but what I was responding to was Big Bad Crab saying Putin is a child of the World Economic Forum. He's not all good in terms of economics. He's not. I'm again. I am not.
It's just they're playing the game.
Oligarchical world leaders, but
yeah, they're just playing it better right now.
BRICS should change their name to Based. I love it. That's hilarious. Nice. Where are we at? 10:40, 45 minutes. I got through 4 stories in 45 minutes. Man, I should have done a 5th story.
Yep.
Damn it.
Could have.
Oh well.
Well, I like it better than anything else.
Yeah, I know, Nancy.
Yeah.
Who are these people?
Well, we could always do that.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
We could always do some of that.